Hey, Fidelity. Can I get a second opinion on stocks in the Fidelity app?
With Fidelity, it's easy to get an outside opinion from independent experts in a single score.
And then?
When you're ready, trade U.S. stocks and ETFs with no commissions.
That's right.
I am always right.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Online U.S. equity trades and ETFs and a retail Fidelity account. Sell order assessment fee not included. Some account types and securities excluded. Details at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Savaged, unfiltered.
Welcome to today's show. Welcome. Joining us today, guys, is going to be part two with Mr. Noah Healy, a data scientist and residing in Charlottesville, Virginia. Mr. Healy has discovered a superior form of the marketplace. We're going to discuss that. Just in case you guys missed part one with this conversation with Noah Healy, we discussed technology, we discussed the economy, we discussed inflation issues, and I want to get into a little bit more of the advantages of modern technology, right? We got into some technology during part one, the ups and downs of it, but I really want to stay focused with the advantages of modern technology, because there are modern advantages in the technology field. Joining us today, like I said, Noah Healy. Welcome back, Noah. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
It's a great honor. And just so the listeners know, we are also joined by a Mr. Joseph M Lenard, the author of Terror Strikes Coming to a City Near You. Joseph, welcome to the panel, buddy.
Oh, thank you. And also, so in case people haven't heard, I'm also former IT guy. So, I know about this stuff too. And, I was on the internet before it was ever called the internet. For those of you who know the name CompuServe out there, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh, very, very much into that. And yes, I'm familiar with that. I hope the listeners are into that. Noah, I want to get into this, and I'm sure Joseph is going to piggyback on some of the questions that we ask here, which some of the advantages in communication tech, that have driven markets to basically speed up. What's the concept of that concept right there, where it's driven the markets to speed up?
Well, speed wins in the current market design. Effectively, what happens is people are coming in with their desires, and if you can move quickly enough, you can see what they're doing and effectively front run their desires. So this allows you to sort of bet the race after it's been called. And this creates an enormous instantaneous tactical advantage for the people who've been able to secure these very high-speed data link computer systems to create the reaction times that allow them to shave off it's called in some circles picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. Because under ordinary market operations, it's just free money. But then if the market suddenly crashes or goes sideways, then everybody is sort of left high and dry.
I see that.
Just like the tech bubble in the 90s, where unfortunately everybody raced to invest in any company that was a .com, regardless of potential profitability.
Yes, indeed. The existence of technology doesn't ensure that it's a working idea, and in many cases, the technology doesn't even exist. We've seen numerous companies that are founded essentially on the "wouldn't it be nice" principle, and frequently it would be nice, but since that invention doesn't exist, it's not really relevant.
Yeah. Joseph made a good point, with the .com scenario, that, we see now, with, computers advancing and everything else, where we've gone to in my view of it and how I see this, Noah, a rapid pace of technology, right, behind that concept, right? We see modern computers that are now pushing to these levels that will basically alter the behavior of the marketplace. Do you
Oh,
see that as well, sir?
that's already happened. Markets have become radically less stable than they've really ever been in human history. And because the relationship of the people that used to be holding up the marketplace to the market is permanently altered by their ability to have access to computing technology, they no longer have a personal stake in a functioning market. They actually have personal stakes in dysfunctional markets now. And so these systems are not only more unstable than they were yesterday, more unstable than they were 10 years ago, they're going to be continue becoming less stable until they eventually become so unstable that we no longer have economies if we persist in using them.
Yeah, we got into that during part one, where it leads to, what we see today. I mean, little by little, I mean, we got into the inflation, which I want to get back into the inflation. And I know that's gonna make Joseph happy, because I mean, he he loves talking about inflation, Noah. I mean, the man lives off of that. He's, that in his book, with the inflation, just a little bit. I don't want to say a lot, a little bit. But Joseph, did you have anything that you want with Noah about this topic that we're on today? Feel free to come in if you'd like.
Well, I just wanted to go back to the wouldn't it be nice, high in the sky kind of ideas. Well, we're kind of, America's built on that though, too. So even though a lot of those .coms busted and it hurt people's bottom lines after they thought they had become rich and were back in the poorhouse, a lot of those failures are only temporary failures, though, too. Think of Netscape. There would be no such thing as Internet Explorer or Edge or Google Chrome or Brave or Firefox without Netscape. And they went bust too, because uh, they rushed product to be first. Like you had said, you kind of want to beat people to the market. Well, beating people to the market, while Netscape was a great visual thing, it was very buggy because their motto was rush it out, fix it later. So,
Yeah. I don't want to deny the existence of some very cool pieces of technology. I would pick a bone with you on America's Foundry on that. Um, People like the Wright brothers or Ford or Edison, or Fulton even, or Whitney created technologies that actually functioned. And it is on those functional technologies that we built the backs of America. Um, Unfortunately, computer introduction to marketplaces, and the sort of co-technological and credit expansions happening at the same time led to effectively the bad behavior of financial arbitrage becoming the founding DNA of technological development. Whereas,
hey guys, if you're looking for a steak, I know it's hard to find steak, right? You know, a lot of restaurants that just overcooked, undercooked, just not to your taste buds, right? You want that juicy steak. Look no further than Omaha Steak. I love them, guys. Love them. If I didn't love them, why wouldn't I be promoting them on the podcast today? Go over to Omaha Steaks, okay? They are phenomenal, guys. The juiciest steak you'll ever taste in your life, okay? A lot of people are like, well, how does it get delivered to your house? You know, with gnats and bugs going to get into it. And no. It's not, you don't have to worry about all that. It is in a sealed, perishable bag delivered to your house. So you don't have to worry about the gnats and the bugs get into it. It's fresh from the time they ship it from their distribution center to the time it arrives at your house. The juiciest steak you'll ever have in your life, guys. Check them out today. Omaha Steaks. Love them. They're phenomenal.
Savaged, unfiltered.
Hold on, Joseph. And why is that? Why do you think that we're going to that level there? You mentioned something that you said, if I have correct, it's not using enough, you're saying? Or is it?
It's not focusing on the product, it's focusing on the IPO. The connection between nearly free money for technology and nearly free money for finance might be a historical accident, but it's a very solid connection. And as somebody that's attempting to launch a technological product and effectively being completely unable to tap into that marketplace because I'm unwilling to make the kinds of claims that are necessary to get onto the bottom rung of the ladder, means that we're creating a system that is basically about hype rather than actual engineering.
Yeah, I get what you're saying now, and I want to say this one thing here, and Joseph, if you'd like, man, you can come into this part here. We're seeing, as a result of these advantages in technology, and basically the speed of these transactions in this field, Noah. Is there an extra need, for this new logical construct?
Well, essentially, that's the foundation of my argument, is that marketplaces are moving so quickly that they have disconnected from delivering human information, which is their purpose.
Okay.
You probably drive. Most people do. Have you seen those like car simulator video games where you can actually get behind the wheel of like an F1 car?
I seen that, and I don't want to get off the topic though, but it seems
this isn't off the topic. Let me just sort of finish this out.
No. What I'm saying is I seen that, and it's kind of like what I meant by getting off the topic. It's kind of similar to what this new administration is trying to push for. Just a little bit, but go ahead.
Right. So the point I'm trying to make is that this can give you a lot of the sensations and feedback of what it would be like to be driving 200 miles an hour in NASCAR, 200 miles or 180 or so in Formula One, whatever. But it would be possible in that environment to sort of run the tape faster and put people behind the wheel of cars that were driving 2,000 miles an hour. However, human beings can't physically do that on the tracks that presently exist. The best drivers in the world would crash if their cars were moving that quickly because it's not even reaction time anymore. Even if they had muscle memory the entire thing, their arms wouldn't physically be able to move fast enough.
I mean, that's
found somebody who could. the computer could make them go 200,000 miles an hour, and then it would kill them. So we
we're
have
nowhere near that in modern. Yes, I'm sorry. We're nowhere near that with the advancement of technology today.
right.
I don't even think in our lifetime we'll get to that level. I mean, you're
No,
talking about something that's probably going to be super advanced in the next like 3 or 4,000 years.
no.
If
Our market system today operates at the microsecond time scale. That is
right.
1 million times per second it updates. Human consciousness, at minimum, is something like a tenth of a second. So the
Yeah.
market is doing 100,000 times something that is the absolute fastest humans could sustainably do. So
Yeah.
you drive around your neighborhood at 25 miles an hour. Imagine if you had to drive around your neighborhood at 250,000 miles an hour. The market's
That's
there right now. And
yeah.
they're working on the technology to put another zero on the end of that and get it down to hundreds of nanoseconds and operating millions of times faster than we can consciously operate at.
Well,
And
That's
so,
conscience that but I think that's conscience that we can't even comprehend. I'm sure, Joseph. What's your thoughts on this, buddy?
yeah, there's a couple things you said. First, when you talked about noise, I agree. And the wouldn't it be nice? Something that's useful and something we need rather than
Savaged, unfiltered.
technology to use. It's trying to build for future use because video download speed is plenty good enough without 5G for high definition.
Yeah.
that may well be. I'm not much on the wireless stuff, but I would again sort of contend we are here now. The markets already operate at this speed and have been doing so uh, for well over a decade at this point. Um,
Yeah.
and we're attempting to drive them more quickly in the face of increasing destabilization. If you can recall the flash crash, when the markets just suddenly and spontaneously started dropping and then recovered a few seconds later, and the news agencies were all having sort of first person accounts of people saying, we didn't know what was happening, we didn't know if it was just sort of over. Well, flash crashes are now a daily event, and we just know that the system is so unstable that the kinds of things that triggered national crises in 1929 are just a thing that will happen for something in the market every day,
Yeah.
because that's just how unstable the market is.
I
Um,
I agree with you that they are on that because of the technology speed.
right.
Absolutely. We're talking about people pre-programming computers all night long to smack that market the minute it opens, and all hell can break loose.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
Noah, what
that's
about I'm sorry, sir. What about some of these computer algorithms? Do you think it would provide a better forecast to produce all of this at a cheaper level?
uh,
Or
well, so my point is that the the issue that we're seeing is a result of the incentives that the present market offers. And so
okay.
what my market does is offers different kinds of incentives that allow everybody to come together at a high level while remaining competitive at an individual level. And with
Yeah.
that kind of system, whereas the current marketplace actually incentivizes individuals to destabilize the market, my system incentivizes individuals to stabilize the market. And as a result of everybody doing everything they can to be the person that most stabilizes the market calms down and becomes much less expensive.
Exactly. Still in part one of this conversation, Noah, we got into. I want to get back to, if you don't mind, because I found that one topic of the conversation we were discussing with some of the economy and the inflation, which you touched very nicely on, and you had actually got it into a new developing patent system. Okay, which has been discussed on the federal level. Can you basically explain here on the show, if you can, just exactly where the phase is with this? Because we got into the phases. There was I think you were early in the phases, correct?
I'm actually fairly well along on patenting. So the way patents work is you put in a full application. In general, most sectors are about 2 years behind. I had to wait approximately 3 years for a first office action. You then have a little contention with your patent examiner about whether what you're working on is novel and useful. Um, and then they'll give you a notice of acceptance, and then you can take the patent application you have and the notice of acceptance, put that in, and they'll give you your patent. So in my case,
Easy
we
one,
had
two, three then, I guess, huh? Yeah.
So in my case, we had to go through a couple rounds. They've acknowledged that nobody's ever thought of anything like this before that anybody knows, and it does look useful. They accepted it about 2 years ago, and then the quality control department put in a note, and they withdrew the acceptance.
Jeez.
They then put forward their reason for the withdrawal, which was logically incoherent, and so I had to put together a response. Effectively, when you boiled down their the logical structure of their statement, they were claiming that 1 and 2 were the same number, and this is in the context of algorithmic analysis. So it wasn't as simple as we think 1 equals 2, therefore you can't have this patent, but it was pretty close to that. I
Yeah, I mean,
found
Noah, you mentioned that you brought this up with your, didn't you go to your congressional leaders at all and you discussed
well
this with them?
that's round 2. So I found papers that are on government websites that describe how 1 and 2 are different in this context, and my lawyers put a very sharply worded note into them saying, "Hey, prove what you're talking about, or please go away." Uh, they reaccepted the patent at the beginning of this year, and then quality control stepped back in a few weeks after that and rejected the patent. And my examiner and my examiner's supervisor, neither of them claim that they can understand what's going on. They've basically copy pasted the previous objection over because they have no idea what's going on. I have had my congressional office ask the patent office what's going on. Their first response was, he has a lawyer. We don't talk to people, outside of channels. Have him ask his lawyer. So we're sort of putting the question a little tighter now because, again, they're not even talking to my attorney.
You,
And
Noah, it almost sounds like they're trying to bury your concept, sir.
It definitely feels like that, and you would not be the first person to bring up nefarious, motives on the part of somebody.
Noah, I have a question here, and hopefully you could answer it. If not, I completely understand. Has this been brought up to the current, presidential administration at all, or?
Uh, Not that I'm aware of. I've spoken to people who work in the SEC and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, both formally and informally. Um, Unfortunately, the costs to get on sort of the record with the CFTC, which would be the controlling industry, the controlling administrative body for me, is an attorney letter that's simply too expensive for me to invest in just to be able to talk to them.
Yeah, I understand,
So
but
it hasn't really gone very far.
yes, what I'm saying is, like, if you were to, try to, bring it to the attention of even this new administration, President Joe Biden, do you think that that President Joe Biden would basically go along with this concept at all, or I mean, within your own personal opinion?
Uh, I don't really think that politicians in the United States are thinking in terms of the financial infrastructure of the country. We have essentially outsourced that to Wall Street, and the people that I've spoken to effectively are unwilling to even listen outside of official channels.
Yeah, I agree with Mike that because now we're talking government, and unfortunately, big bureaucracy slows everything down. And indeed, we are in a day and age where you can get in George Orwell 1984 Animal Farm style someone who says 2 + 2 = 5 just because they're feeling it. They feel that way and can block innovation. Imagine, like we talked about Ford and Edison and Boeing, had all these deep state bureaucrats who would have to check off on everything were in the way of those innovators back then, like you're encountering today.
Yeah. Although I will note that one of the things that allowed Ford to get off the ground was the extremely deep pocket backing that he received initially, which allowed him to overcome something known as the Selden patent, which buggy whip manufacturers had acquired and which they claimed effectively covered any conceivable motorized vehicle. And they were using it as a patent blocker to car manufacture in the United States. The Ford was able to take that case to the Supreme Court and have.
Hey guys, if you're trying to look for an organic product, right, you're getting tired of using the over-counter medication that's filled with chemicals, filled with all those nasty, cancerous ingredients, guys, head over to liverishi.com. That's right, guys, liverishi.com. What is Live Rishi? It's an organic CBD oil company that uses natural hemp oil in their products, guys. As you can see, I'm out and about right now. You develop a rash from walking in the park, grab that Live Rishi cream with you, rub it on there. I'm telling you what, guys, it's going to work like wonders. It's going to work like wonders. Use promo code SAVAGED UNFILTERED for 20% off your entire order, guys. And I'm telling you what, that's a great deal. 20% off your entire order. liverishi.com. Grab it today, guys. You're going to love it.
Said, to allow car manufacture to begin here in the United States.
You're talking about competitive roadblocks, someone's best interest over another's. And we saw that too, with Edison and Westinghouse tried to get government to intercede against the other guy rather than alleviating barriers like you just talked about, but to put them in place to block competition.
Yeah. These are things that happen, and that's another. Some of the people that I'm sort of on the journey with have brought that up as a potential blocker.
Noah, if I may add, the reason why I asked about, button up to the current presidential administration, or even on this new federal level, is because this system here, and hearing you talk about it and the concept behind it, and the great benefits that it can provide. I mean, it has a lot to do with with the economy that we have today. And I mean, we got into the inflation issues that we're seeing now. Right now, you had mentioned that you see that it would help it a little bit, but we're too far adrift from the current inflation that we're seeing now. If we weren't facing, now this is my question here, sir, if we weren't facing the inflation that we have currently right now, which is, I mean, it's getting worse and worse every single day. If this was prior to possibly maybe the Biden administration, right? Because I don't like to put blame on any type of federal or local office, their decisions. But I mean, seeing where our country's going right now, I mean, that's an entirely different topic, entirely different episode. But seeing where our country's going right now with this inflation issue and where the economy is being driven to, prior to Joe Biden taking office, if this was, and this is my own personal view and opinion on this, folks, so please, don't hold me to the to the can on this. But if this was prior to Joe Biden taking office right now, and say just miraculously Donald Trump was still holding office, do you think that this patent, the patent that you're developing right now, sir, do you think that it would show a significant difference if, say, Donald Trump was still in office right now? And do you think it would benefit the economy at all?
Well, so I don't know that it would make much difference with the patent, because virtually the entire patent pursuit was, in fact, while Trump was in office. In fact, the first denial, which was itself bizarrely handled by the patent office.
You had mentioned that the first denial was during the Trump presidency,
was
but
during the Trump presidency. However, adoption of this technology would have a dramatic positive effect on the economy, really, regardless of the occupancy of the White House, unless they were able to put into place new roadblocks on a truly unprecedented scale. So government usually likes to spread its numbers out to make them sound bigger or smaller. So usually prices and costs are done over 10-year timeframes. They would have to implement a $4 trillion tax in order to counterbalance the short-term gain from this kind of system. And I don't see that as being politically feasible for anybody. That number is so big that the electorate would not wait for elections. That the lawsuit flurry would be so huge that the phone calls. I think back to I believe it was the late '80s when Ted Kennedy and the Democrats were thinking about Social Security, and AARP put together a mob of senior citizens at the Capitol that was so intense that Dan Rostenkowski, who was one of the most powerful men in the House in those days, and multiple senators were trapped in their limousines by people in walkers, and it made the nightly news. That sort of scene would be replayed on steroids from such a dramatic reach. And
it wouldn't in this respect, because you're right. They know they can't. So what they would do is hide a $500 billion increase, like the Inflation Reduction Act taxes that are going to cause more inflation, and then just print another $3.5 trillion of fiat currency, which has gotten us the inflation we are now because we don't have balanced budgets. And again, to reiterate, you're talking about Trump, Biden, Michael. Yeah, there's no difference here. It's the deep state, lifelong government employees with their own agenda that are at issue here.
Yeah, but my question, going back to the interest, if Donald Trump was still in office here, where I think, and this is my own personal opinion, I say things on the show, and people, oh no, he's wrong. No, it's an opinion, folks. Please, it's an opinion. What I'm trying to say is, if he was still in office, do you think that this new patent, this new system that you've been working on, Mr. Healy, do you think that this would drive a huge interest, in your own personal opinion, to Donald Trump, and of course the Department of Treasury and everything else in Washington? Do you think that Donald Trump would actually go along with this idea?
I can't really say. I don't have a sense of what does and doesn't draw his attention. He seems to respond spontaneously to the crowd events that he's in, but I would say that he took his eye off the ball almost immediately upon beginning his administration, in terms of sort of what the agenda that he was talking about during his stump speech versus what he actually did. What he did was in line with his basic platform. But I was alive in 2015, 2016. I watched the crowds interrupt him with shouts of "build the wall" and "lock her up," and quite clearly he didn't finish either of those two things, and pretty much immediately in his administration set out not as those were not the first things that he was doing. He was carrying out
Right. I
other parts
understand
of the agenda. So
yeah, I understand.
I don't know
Yeah.
how this would or would not attract his attention. I expect, based on his sort of deference to the process, that it would be pretty similar, because I've been doing this for several years. I did it all the way through his administration. When I talk to people in government, which I did during his administration.
Yeah, what was the outcome of that? Because I actually wanted to see some of your experiences that you had seen. Were they fascinated about your idea at all? Or I mean, you mentioned that during the first several months,
I was at a convention called the Agricultural Commodity Futures Trading.
Yeah,
Convention.
you mentioned that on part one. Yeah, we didn't have enough time to go into that. Can you go into that a little bit?
Well, it was quite fascinating. I was hoping to maybe even get a speech slot or something similar to that in the follow-up, but then unfortunately COVID happened and they canceled the event, and it hasn't really come back yet. But they had presentations by the people who operate the departments in Treasury and so on. It's the people in the government that were regulating these markets and the people at the markets that were actually running them. And then there was a entire convention room full of farmers and manufacturers and traders that would then ask questions after 30 to 40-minute presentation, and the questions were savage.
I like that.
I recall one of the ones that really stood out. There was the guy who was in charge of the settlement algorithm at the CME Group, an economist who was the world's foremost expert on settlement algorithms and what sort of choices you can make, and the lead regulator from the CFTC on settlements, and they did a presentation on how settlement actually took place and what happened at the actual coal face, basically, when a trade was settled and a contract was made. And I believe it was the first question from the crowd after it was over, pointed out that, and everybody had their laptops, so they had like the details. I'm not going to remember the stats exactly, but that effectively the millions of potential trades that are on the books, every time a trade actually happens, in less than a second, all of those million trades are withdrawn, and those same people put in new millions of trades, and wait for another trade to actually occur. And so the guy's question is, given that, was the CME under the impression that their clients were putting in their trades with the intention to trade them? Now, the important thing to understand about this is that putting in a request to trade or accepting a request to trade which is not intended to trade is a crime.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean,
that's a federal crime.
It's
attempting
to manipulate the market.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this guy's question was, given the fact that all of your customers act like they're criminals, are you under the impression that all of your customers are criminals? and the guy from the CME group who was in charge of this system dropped, I'm not going to be able to get this word for word, and it's obviously important, and I'll get to that in a second, but he dropped out this sentence of everything's at risk of trading, effectively. So effectively, this very legally well-worded thing of basically, we know that they're all criminals, but if I say this sentence, I'm not legally culpable. And
Noah, if hold on, sir, if I may add, this was all being said right at this conference up in Washington.
So this wasn't in Washington. This was in Kansas City. But
okay.
The guy's response to the canned answer that he got was, "Did you actually just say that?" Word for word. And they had a back and forth, and the reason I'm quite positive that it was like a legally prepared canned response is that after back and forthing for 40 or 50 seconds, the CME guy repeated the sentence verbatim. It's obviously something that he had practiced, and that's where things are. And that was 2 years ago. Things have not gotten better since, or 3 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that is exactly where we are. Legalized CYA. Word twisting words, carefully crafting sentences to be ambiguous, to mean this or that, or both this and that at the same time. But if I may, Michael, to go back to what you were saying, let's take Trump Biden out of this. It's kind of, I think you're implying the left-right dynamic, the left philosophy of more government, bigger government, bureaucrats control. One person in the deep state with an agenda can hold someone up like is happening here, whereas the right philosophy, and Trump tried to do this as best he could with reducing regulation and cutting red tape and allowing business owners and innovators to
Joseph, I mean, exactly, sir. I mean, he ran on that concept for 4 years, cutting the regulation. And I mean, a lot of people look at it as a failure, but when you're dealing with bureaucrats and people that just want nothing but
bureaucrats, lifelong deep state people, yes.
Yeah, and then when you have and when you have people like Noah that's trying to develop something that can not only alter the system but benefit the system. They don't want to take that concept into play. They're like, well, it just doesn't work. Well, why doesn't it work? That's my question. Why doesn't it work? You haven't even thought of it. You haven't even, given it a chance yet,
It's just
Yeah.
protecting the status quo. Yeah. And what lobbyist is paying that person to protect the status quo?
Uh, Certainly, and to that effect, you know, Trump and Joe Biden, I don't know which one of them would be more attached to the current financial status quo. Um, Trump's long history of basically building those people's houses links his fortune very intimately to Wall Street and the financial system. But Joe's long history as the senator from Delaware, which is where all the companies are headquartered, and as sort of, you know, MasterCard's man on the Senate floor, very tightly ties his fortunes to the financial status quo as well.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. You know, before we close it out here, Noah, during a recent podcast you have been on through Corporation Thought with Mark Marlin, you explained about disrupting the commodities in the markets. I found that episode very fascinating. You got into a lot of key points, which you have today on today's show. Did you want to spin off any of that conversation you had with Mark Marlin?
Sure. Well, the key thing is that right now, um, roughly half of the profits that go into making the stuff that makes up all the stuff that we actually use and eat and so on,
Yeah.
are absorbed sales process of that stuff. And so by making that sales process much more efficient, easily 10x more efficient, we could shift, and by shifting a large portion of that cost into the production column, we could effectively double the profits for producing commodities. And if we do that, then the productive economy would become more profitable than the transactional economy would. And
Oh, without a
our
doubt.
efforts and intelligence and genius and so on could be unleashed on creating an economy that was wealthier rather than one that was extractive as we presently have. And that would have vast benefits in terms of people having better jobs that pay more money, that produce things that other people need to live better lives.
Yeah, you touched on that will provide people to have better jobs to live a better lifestyle. Now, do you see, with the rising, and I'm sure you see it where you live up in Virginia, do you see, with these rising wages that they're paying people more money, but in reality, they're really not making more money. You know what I mean, sir?
Well,
They're
the
balancing it out because of the inflation that we're
the
seeing right now.
at the working class level, the driver for higher wages is higher cost of living. They're being paid more because if they were not being paid more, they would not be able to get their car all the way to their place of business. They wouldn't be, awake
Yeah, I
during
mean, you look at
job and so
the
on.
inflation. That's what I was saying. It's the inflation that we're seeing. That's what's driving these employers or these companies to pay their employees more money. I've touched on inflation many times with Joseph here on the show, and that's one of the reasons a lot of people. Oh, I'm getting paid more money. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. Yeah, you are. That's great.
Yeah,
But like you mentioned, yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
but your cost of living has still declined because the wages aren't increasing faster than the rate of inflation. And I like to bring it back to seniors on Social Security. They, the stated inflation rate is manipulated, and the COLAs are never really enough to keep up with the real inflation rate. Like groceries, a lot of groceries aren't factored into the inflation rate. And look at the runaway cost at your grocery store. So if you get a 10% raise based on the lie that inflation is currently 9.1%, when it's really more like 20%, you're losing ground.
Yeah.
Certainly, that is the case. And one fairly inexpensive and eye-opening thing that you can do is watch movies from 30 or 50 or 90 years ago and
Yeah.
see what prices have been like within the lives of those now living. Because for those who argue that inflation has been low since the 90s, you can watch some of the most popular films even today were produced during the 90s, and little things slip out here and there about
Noah, you look
what
at the
gas
quality.
prices were like, what other prices were like, and it's quite stunning.
Yeah, like I mentioned, Noah, you got to look at the quality, like you mentioned. You could see the budgeting, you can see the effects of each era or each generation through movies with that inflation or with that deficit or whatever it's facing. Like you mentioned, movies. You look at the '90s. Just look at the quality. Is the quality a lot different from the '90s compared to the 2000s? Sure. There was a lot more quality being introduced because they weren't facing budgeting issues that they're facing now. You go up to Hollywood, whether it's in LA or little areas, I call them little Hollywood areas like Atlanta or Detroit or Chicago, and you could look at these studio companies, these production companies, and they're very careful with their production now because of the money that goes into film production, editing, all that. Go back to the 90s, it was a lot easier, even the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. So yes, I do agree with that concept 110%. Noah, we're going to close it out here, sir. I really, I really enjoyed bringing you on for part two. I thank Joseph for coming on, to be part of this panel. And, I'd really, really like to see some of these ideas and thoughts that you have developed, even this patented system, to basically make a headway for itself. I'd love to see it come out in its full entirety with that concept, sir.
Yeah, well, I'm pushing for that myself. I take your good wishes on board. I'm very hopeful as well.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts there, Joseph, before we close up the show?
Yeah, and I hate to bring it back to politics, but unfortunately, it still all does boil down to that. It's going to take a decade or two of the right people to stop blocking innovators like you, to reduce the red tape, that the bureaucrats in the deep state that have these governmental union protections and you darn near almost cannot fire any of them, that are blocking people like you, to reduce that red tape, because they fight every inch of the way the reduction of the red tape, because little bureaucrats like you've encountered like the power, like the control, like the fascist ability to block your innovation that can help all people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's the fight we have to continue, Joseph. Mr. Healy, this is a fight that you cannot give up on. It's a tremendous idea, and I could see very, very fascinating results coming out of this in the near future. Hopefully, not too far into the future. Hopefully, within this decade, we can see this concept basically being played out, not only in the federal level, but also the state level too, as well. I'd love to see some, state governors, mayors, local leadership, using these ideas, using this concept to not only benefit the economy, but benefit the United States of America, because we've become a nation of decline. And I had that concept on my show not too long ago here with Joseph. We are, Mr. Healy, a nation in decline, and it's very sad. Noah, I want to say thank you once again, one more time before I close you out, and I'll mention you right now in the show notes as well here on the show. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on. It's a true honor having you on the show today.
Thank you.
Yes, and don't give up on your ideas and your concepts, sir. I really mean that from the best of my bottom of my heart. Excuse me. In closing, guys, I'd like to say here, if you're not familiar with Noah Healy, yes, I have mentioned he is a well-known data scientist, as well as other work that he gets himself involved with the marketplace. You could find him on his website at coordisc.com. That's spelled COORDISC.com, as well as his LinkedIn, profile. You can find him on that profile at linkedin.com/IN/Noah-Healy. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for being part of the show, and good luck in your future endeavors, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, amen, Michael. Noah, what happened to the hippies of the 60s, right? Let me echo them. Don't let the man get you down. Keep plugging away.
I definitely will.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thanks very much.